Now we have a fairy tale. We all know and love our fairy tales, and this one is called Little Red Riding Hood, about a girl who goes on a dangerous walk through the forest to see her grandma. Once there was a girl who had a lovely red coat with a red hood. People called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother put some cakes in a basket. "Granny's ill," she said. "Why don't you go and see her?" So, Little Red Riding Hood set off with the cakes. "Stay on the path and don't talk to strangers," warned her mother. Little Red Riding Hood reached the woods and saw some beautiful flowers. She wandered off the path to pick some for her granny. That's a kind thing for Little Red Riding Hood to do, isn't it? I do think that her mum said, don't go off the path. As soon as she left the path, she met a wolf. "What's in your basket?" he asked sweetly. "Cakes for my granny," answered Little Red Riding Hood. "Where does your granny live?" the wolf asked. "Further along the path," replied Little Red Riding Hood, "in a little cottage." While Little Red Riding Hood picked some flowers, the wolf hurried along the path. When Little Red Riding Hood arrived at Granny's cottage, she called out, "Granny, it's me." "Come in, the door's open," wheezed Granny. She was tucked up in bed with the curtains closed. "Granny, what big ears you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to hear you with, my dear," Granny whispered. "Granny, what big eyes you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with, my dear," said Granny. "Granny, what big teeth you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to eat you with," snarled Granny, leaping out of bed. "Help!" Little Red Riding Hood cried. The horrible wolf chased her round and round the cottage. "Help! Help!" Little Red Riding Hood shouted. Luckily, a woodcutter heard her calling and ran to see what all the noise was about. The woodcutter saw the wolf and raised his axe. The wolf took one look and jumped out of the window. "Thank you," said Little Red Riding Hood. "You saved my life." "You must never, ever talk to wolves," said the woodcutter. "What is that knocking?" Little Red Riding Hood rushed over to open the wardrobe where the knocking was coming from. She found Granny safe and well. The wolf had shut her inside. "Goodness, thank you," Granny said to Little Red Riding Hood and gave her a big hug. Little Red Riding Hood put on the kettle and they all had cake and a nice cup of cocoa. And Little Red Riding Hood never ever strayed off the path in the woods again. And that's the end of our story.